Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri. The whole band is here. Dakota Lasky, Doom Crossing. How we doing, gentlemen?
Doing good, yeah. Doing all right.
How about you over there in Monterey?
Yeah, same here. I was just telling you guys, backstage, I rarely get Fridays off, but, we're recording here on a Friday. And so, yeah, I'm very much, enjoying some much needed time off before we get back into the grind set.
Have we ever recorded on a Friday?
I feel like we have to have recorded on a Friday somewhere.
Once. I feel like we haven't, though. I feel like I'm trying to think of all the days we've recorded on, and
the three of us together, we have not recorded on a Friday before.
Well, that I think is
that I think for sure. There's got to be. I mean, we're 161 episodes in. There's got to be one of them that was on a Friday at some point, right?
Maybe one of the E3 episodes or something around there.
It is an uncommon day for us to be recording, to be sure. And
I remember, Dread, we recorded that on a Tuesday because that's when the Direct was.
I remember that show. Yeah,
I
remember that show.
We all did, I think.
Okay, so yeah, we are we're all together. We're here. We're happy, and we got a good show for you. We're gonna revisit actually a topic that is very, very topical right now, and that is what we would want to see in a potential Metroid movie. And of course, we are talking about this because the Super Mario movie, or the Super Mario Bros. Movie came out. It is all the rage right now. It is.
Wait, there's a Mario movie?
This movie, I remember our discussion from a while ago, and we were talking about the Mario movie is gonna make $1 billion or something like that. As of this writing, it's been out for less than a week, right? At
just over a week.
Just over. Yeah. Okay. It's over $500 million already. So this is already the highest grossing debut for an animated movie ever. It's breaking all kinds of records. It is already the highest grossing video game movie ever, which is pretty sweet. And we're also recording a bonus show that is available for our patrons rather, over on Patreon. All of our thoughts on the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and I'm very, very excited for that. I got to say a lot of my thoughts already over on Virtual Theater, the podcast about video game movies and the stories that shaped them. But I'm really, really, really looking forward to seeing what you guys think of what your kind of takeaways were, and if they're similar to mine. But that is going to be that's going to be what we're talking about today. But I did want to throw something out there to you, and Dak. Maybe you can hold off a little bit because surprise, not next week, but the week after, we're doing an Omega takeover of the Zelda cast. So we got me, we got Dak, and we got Lilith all getting together. But maybe just very briefly, the final trailer for Tears of the Kingdom came out. Did it sell you?
Do you really want me to answer right now?
Answer in one word, and then we'll save the rest for the Zelda guest. No, okay.
No, it did not. No.
Okay, Doom, you can be a little bit more. Free flowing, if you will. What did you think?
Well, what I think is I did not watch the trailer, so I cannot wait.
I knew. Yeah.
So
what?
So I cannot wait to see what everyone is freaking out about.
That's right, because you're the spoiler, not show me anything guy.
I respect that. That's discipline right there. I mean, that's hard to do for a big release like this.
So hold on. Let me get this right. You didn't see.
I don't have that discipline.
You didn't see anything. Like you didn't see.
I've seen the new art for the main villain. Which
okay.
We can say who the main villain is, right?
I think we can.
Can we say that?
And if you don't want to hear it, then fast forward 30 seconds. But we're talking about Ganon Daddy. Whoa.
Yeah, which I love the new Ganondorf design. I think he
that looks awesome.
It gives off samurai vibes, which I've never really seen with Ganondorf before, and I think he looks absolutely badass.
Wind Waker.
Huh? He looks like a cool version of Wind Waker. Yeah, not the Wind Waker that looks cool.
Like samurai vibes in Wind Waker, though. I feel like.
Yeah, but he's like shredded in this game though, which I love.
He could have been shredded in Wind Waker. He was wearing a big flowing thing, right? We don't know.
That's
he
true.
could have been shredded.
He's hydrated,
no idea.
That's for sure.
He was hydrated in that game. He was very hydrated, so he's cooking. Jack.
Yeah. Otherwise, I know absolutely nothing about this new trailer, and I intend to keep it that way for the next month.
Okay, I respect you, Doom, for that because I'm like Dak. I watched the trailer. I actually looked at that leaked art book just
Oh
Cause
yeah, I'm awful at that. If there's anything regarding anything that I'm interested in, I look at spoilers, I look at leaks, like
yeah,
I just can't help myself. I just want to know. I need to know,
yeah.
and then I'll watch how it happens later. But
I went into. I'm just gonna say I went into both Infinity War and Endgame without having watched a single trailer. Just want to throw that
I
out
thought you were
there.
gonna say without watching a single other Marvel movie.
That would have been
That's a
impressive.
bit
Yeah.
much. That's a bit much.
I feel like
For
you could
no
go in,
spoilers.
like, I don't know, but I totally agree, and I kind of was just like, if the art book's releasing with the game on day one, like how spoilery is it gonna be, right? And it wasn't, but it's still, I respect that. I was curious because obviously it was a pretty exciting little thing for us Zelda fans out there, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
Metroid fans are Zelda fans. So if you,
I thought it was a good trailer.
the best one by far. I think by
Well,
far.
the bar is pretty low there, but
Yeah,
yes, I agree.
that's true.
I agree. I thought it was a good trailer. Yeah.
This trailer should have been the one that came out a couple years ago, I think, and then like keep building on it and keep building on it. I think
I will say the trailer was better on mute.
Okay.
is how I'll finish my statements until
I can't wait to talk
I'm
about
assuming
this.
the voice direction.
I will reserve my thoughts for the
Listen,
Zelda
pal,
Dungeon
you have
show.
to listen to the Zelda cast in 2 weeks' time to get the goods on what Dak
Yeah.
thinks.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, going back to what we were talking about before, I veered us off course here. The Super Mario Bros. Movie is absolutely cleaning house. It's taken all the money. It's I think it did pretty good in terms of reviews. I think I've seen a couple bad faith criticisms, or what I would say are bad faith criticisms, but it's kind of what you thought it would be. And naturally, I think that I think that a lot of us in this community are just like, the Mario movie was such a success. What's next, right? And you and I talked about this a couple months ago, and we kind of had our pitches, and we'll go over in detail some of that stuff again, some in lesser detail, some in more. But I think that like it's a fair question to ask, and I don't think it's like completely impossible that like at some point down the road here, if these movies keep on becoming successes, that we do see a Metroid movie, because like you're already seeing it. Like video game movies are the next like comic book movie bust, like or boom rather. Like there's tons of people going like there is so much here to be mined and exploited on the big screen. So that there's a lot of people, including, by the way, a lot of people, including Chris Pratt and Charlie Day, that were like, Metroid would be very cool. We actually published an article on Omega where they did an interview, and they brought up unprompted that they thought a Metroid movie would be very, very cool. So I think that there is like I'm not going to say like a ton of momentum, but like I think that it's not impossible, and certainly more likely, even if it's like a very, very low percentage, than it would have been a year ago or anything like that. So so yeah, it's an exciting time. And that interview, by the way, is on Gizmondo. You should check it out. It was actually very interesting, but cool times to be a Metroid fan. So here we go again. We are going to talk about what we want for a Metroid movie. And Dak, I'm going to turn the keys over to you, my friend.
Yeah, so obviously the reason I wanted to do this episode is because of the Mario Brothers movie just coming out. But I thought it was apt because I don't think I was on the episode that you guys talked about your Metroid movie pitches most recently. And also I think I wanted to do like a conclusive, like our last thoughts on the Metroid movie stuff until probably a Metroid movie gets announced. Like I feel like we've gone back to this topic a number of times, and like let's answer some stuff. I also didn't want to like recycle going over our pitches entirely. I was kind of interested in like getting our thoughts after seeing what the Mario movie was like, maybe kind of revisiting what do we think after now seeing a Nintendo movie in theaters, what that could mean for Metroid. So that's why I wanted to jump into this. So I think the first thing, and I gave you guys a list of the questions that I wanted to do, but I'm actually going to move around a little bit here and there, but also wanted to give you guys the note that some of these questions, like I'm asking what you guys like, what you want. Like if money was no issue, you run the studio, whatever it is that you want to make happen. Other stuff, I'm asking your realistic opinions. So to you guys, I'm gonna start with Andy, you first. You have any option here. If it's going to be animated, right? You're still doing a movie. but it could be animated. Would you want it to be in 3D or in 2D? Now, having seen Illumination 3D, is it something that you would be like, I could see this for Metroid, or would you want a feature length? Let's say we're in the days of the 90s. Walt Disney is churning, Lion King is coming. Like we're back then, or something like that, and like 2D animations coming back or something. 2D or 3D for Metroid?
I think it's got to be 3D, right? Like I think that it just looks a little bit more advanced, a little bit more. I don't want to say futuristic because I mean like it's not. It's happening now, but like I think that with Metroid in particular, you kind of want to have like the most advanced like tech, quote unquote technology that you can, or like the most advanced presentation, maybe is the word I'm looking for, that you can. I think there are some Nintendo series that would benefit greatly from like the 2D kind of style. Like I think Zelda actually would be fine in that kind of presentation, like a Ghibli kind of a way. I do think Metroid, you kind of want to have it be like I said, like looking as advanced as animation can. And I think there's a really obscure movie that I would throw out there that I'm going to look up right now who made it. But there was a movie that released, I want to say at least 10 years ago, called Nine. And this movie had some really, really cool animation to it. And I almost think if this movie was animated, it should almost kind of follow that template that this movie set out. It was
Wasn't it stop motion too?
It wasn't.
Or am I thinking of another movie?
It wasn't quite stop motion. Like it wasn't like Corpse Bride or Nightmare Before Christmas or Coraline or anything like that. It was done by oh god, let me see here. It was done by Lux Animation, and they did a really, really great job with it. And it was kind of like a different style of animation. If a Metroid movie was to be animated, I think I would want it to look something like that. So that was a long way of saying 3D.
Okay.
I think I actually kind of disagree with that. So when I think of like Metroid animation, the visual that comes to my mind is Metroid Zero Mission, which is heavily influenced by both Japanese manga and Western comic book art. And when I look at that, I think that's the kind of style I want to go for if I were to do a Metroid animated type of TV show or a film. A lot of people have brought up, how they'd want to see like, a Castlevania style Netflix show in the style of Metroid, including one of the artists from that show as well, who was very interested in doing that. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the visual representation that I kind of look at when I see Metroid on the screen, and at least when it comes to animation.
I think just to put a cap on that, I wouldn't be like I wouldn't balk at that at all. Like I think that would look great. I think the thing with me is like when I look at Zero Mission, I see, and you're gonna have to forgive me because I'm gonna throw this phrase out, but like I see it as being a little almost too anime style, and I love Zero Mission's art style. Don't get me wrong, but and I love Castlevania on Netflix also, but I think that art style works for Castlevania, and I'm not sure. I mean, you could make anything work, right? But I don't. I think for me, I wouldn't want like a more anime kind of presentation for Metroid. I'd rather like a little bit more futuristic, I guess.
Or I guess just more main. I don't know if mainstream is the right way to put it either.
Yeah,
I get what you're getting at though. You made 2 points there actually when I addressed. First, you brought up Studio Ghibli because I was going to mention. I feel like when people mention them for Zelda, that's the go-to. I feel like that style would be so sick for Metroid, though. My favorite Studio Ghibli movie is Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind.
I was watching that last night.
And that movie reminds me of Metroid the most. Obviously, the connotation, like connections of like, the environment and like, man versus nature and all that. But I think visually it like has that mixture of like sci-fi and fantasy that like gets into this like organic-y, like it's like something about it that gives me that kind of Metroid vibe, and I'm losing the words for it. And that's the movie that I think of where like, oh, it could be modeled in that kind of way. I feel like that kind of almost surreal abstractness that you get from Studio Ghibli movies would be really cool for Metroid. Like it would be a weird kind of spin on it, but that actually I feel like interests me more than Zelda, because Zelda I feel like is the obvious choice, and like of course that would work. It's a standard fantasy story. To like apply that to Metroid, I feel like would be super cool.
I don't disagree, and I didn't mean to sound like I was disagreeing with you either, Doom.
No,
It's
I
like
know. Yeah, yeah.
I think it could work. It'd be really
I
great.
don't think
Yeah,
anyone's really mentioned that as kind of my point. It's like I feel like
yeah.
you think of Zelda when you think of like Studio Ghibli going to a game IP. I feel like
It's
Metroid
hard
would be
not to
super
think of
cool.
like Zelda when
Yeah,
you're
of
watching
course.
Mononoke, and it seems like
Hmm.
it seems like a natural
Yeah,
fit.
Mononoke
But
is another great example there too.
yeah,
And then you also mentioned obviously Castlevania, which I believe was. I mean, I know it's on Netflix, but I don't know who actually animates it for Castlevania on Netflix. But when I think of like anime studios that could potentially do Metroid, I'm thinking. I mean, I'm thinking of my favorite anime, so I'm thinking like Bones because they've done like Full Metal Alchemist. They do. I think they do My Hero Academia. They did Space Dandy. So that kind of style I think could be interesting for Metroid. Madhouse, One Punch Man, the first season, in that kind of style. I think like the capture, like how the like aliens and like weird creatures are captured in the first season of One Punch Man would be really cool for Metroid. So when I
Mm.
think of anime studios like animation, Castlevania would be sick, but I kind of think of like my Full Metal Alchemist, my One Punch Man, like Attack on Titan. Like the monster and like Titan designs and that I feel like would be sick to apply that to like massive creatures in Metroid. That's where my feelings go in terms of like animation. Doom, do you have anyone that sticks out for you or differences there?
I'll be honest, I am very basic when it comes to anime, so like I don't really have like any suggestions or
This
anything
guy's
in
a
that.
Corey in the house kind of guy. He wants some of that Corey in the house animation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Give
Okay.
me Corey, don the helmet on Corey. That's what the world needs.
So this is unrelated. I've been watching Neon Genesis Evangelion, and my wife hates it. She will not watch it anymore. We made it 9 episodes in. She pulled the plug, which is too bad because I like it, but she's not a fan. But I do think like even that like is very sci-fi, very
It's a
cool.
very polarizing show to watch with
Yes.
somebody.
Yeah, like I think that could work, and like there's a lot like Cowboy Bebop is I mean it's a
Oh,
little bit
love
of a,
Cowboy. Yeah.
step removed, but like I think
Animated
that
Cowboy Bebop, not live
oh yeah
action
yeah yeah no
Cowboy
not
Bebop.
live action no
Yeah.
no
That's another
so
great example.
it's like I think that all that could work and be really well. I guess that's just not what I picture when I picture Metroid animated, and kind of like this is going to be a consistent thread for me, but like I kind of based a lot of my ideas on what I think would happen, so like it's hard to almost
I want
remove
you to
yourself from that, you know?
use your imagination,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I yeah,
Dive
let's
in.
go.
I think too. I'm also a big fan of Gundam. So like I love like Gundam Wing, like G Gundam. 8th MS Team is really good, by the way, for anyone who hasn't watched that. That's very like a grounded one. I would love to see Metroid in that like 80s or 90s style anime. Like I don't know how to describe that look, but you guys know what I'm talking about almost. Like that
It's
like
Yeah,
almost like it's
kind of like Ghost in the
unpolished.
Shell style anime, right?
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like that kind of like dated almost look to it.
It's a little bit raw, a little bit like more rough around
Yeah.
the edges, but in like a relatable way. Yeah.
I feel like that would be so sick for Metroid too, and I feel like I've almost seen fan art kind of like that.
Hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
would love
And
that
I
on my end.
and I should also say that like when I say anime, like I'm specifically talking about the visual representation. I don't want that like I don't know how to describe it. That like over the top kind of
Oh yeah, I'm not
melodramatic
like anime
presentation.
melodrama. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I want that.
I absolutely do not want any of that in Metroid. I'm specifically talking about the visual presentation.
Yes, I mean
Great.
you don't want beach episodes in your
Yeah,
Metroid.
I
You don't need
don't
your
want
beach episodes.
other M is what I'm saying.
That's what we need. We need an episode on not pitching a Metroid movie, but pitching our best Metroid filler for a TV show. What would it be?
I like a good filler episode. I'm not gonna lie.
Me too. I like that. I think it fillers the wrong word because if you really get into it, it expands your knowledge and I don't know, getting
Yeah.
into the story. I don't know.
Samus goes to the DMV to get her new ship
Exactly.
registered. I don't know.
How does she react when she waits online for 4 hours? I want to know.
Yeah.
So we talk. Okay, so you think, Andy, you think it should really kind of be a 3D movie, and another reason why I wanted to talk about this topic in general is Nintendo's clearly like partnered with Illumination,
Mhm.
right? Like they kind of went to them and saw them as like a big partner, and I feel like it's a partnership that is going to continue. I don't think this is a one and done thing. So it's safe to say that like in the animated movie space, that's who they want to go to. And this is something I want you to answer in terms of like what you really think in real life. Do you think Illumination would do a Metroid movie? You think it's their type of movie to do? Because If Nintendo's going to do a movie, they're going to be their first group to go to, right? I mean, they have Nintendo Pictures, and we can talk about that later. But like, Illumination's clearly their go-to. So, would they ever do a Metroid movie? The current Illumination. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't see it.
You don't see it, Doom?
I agree, actually.
Yeah.
And I think that we would have to preface our answer with like, if a Metroid movie were to ever occur, it's probably a ways down the road. Like to make an MCU analogy, it would probably be
That's like a phase 2 movie at least.
It would be like the
Phase
Ant-Man of the NCU, right? Like it's not like it's like I mean, if you really want to be generous, you could call it like the Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's still like a phase 2.
That's not a bad spot to be in, though.
No, it's not. But I don't really think that is type of movie that Illumination is like necessarily clamoring to make. Now, there are a bunch of Nintendo series that I could see them going to, like a Kirby or a Splatoon or whatever, right? Like, but I think that because the Metroid movie would be further down the road, and because I don't know if it would be Illumination making it. I think that maybe Nintendo, like my point is that it's a farther away movie. Maybe Nintendo learns enough from Illumination, because I think that's a goal of their partnership, is to like learn how to do this for themselves so they can be like self-sufficient. Okay. So I think that's probably something that they wait to do, if they ever do it at all, until they can be like, okay, this is how we make a competent animated movie. Let's go. Because I don't see Metroid kind of fitting in the same wheelhouse as those other series. Like could you imagine watching a Metroid movie and Ridley is flying away and Samus is chasing after in her ship, and like, you know, Uptown Funk starts playing in the background or something? Like, I don't know if I see that. So
the sad thing is I do see that.
Well, the sad thing is like, you could see that if it was Illumination, but I think that
We Need a Hero, whatever that song is.
Oh,
like
yeah.
That's what's gonna be playing.
I admitted to Goo on the Mario Pod, and I'll admit to you now too. I've never actually seen Shrek, but I understand.
Yeah, we were talking about the Discord.
I thought we were gonna wait until the Mario Patreon episode to really dig into this, but how have you not seen Shrek?
I've seen bits and parts on TV. I don't know. I never sat
You're sitting
down
trying to watch like Neon Genesis with your wife for just 9 episodes, but you can't watch Shrek. You're subjecting that to her, and you can't watch Shrek.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I have nothing to say. I have no defense. I'm not proud. It's just I've never seen Shrek.
And the song's not even from Shrek. It's from Shrek 2. You got to watch both.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, when we all eventually get together, like, we're gonna watch the first 2 Shrek films.
I said I will watch those Shrek
We don't even
films.
need to be together in person. You made us watch the original Mario Brothers movie online,
and it was
Discord.
Awesome. Yeah, it was
fell
great.
asleep. I literally fell asleep when the car sequence when they fall off the cliff and they land in the goo. That's the last thing I remember.
God,
that's the last thing I remember. That's like 15 minutes into the movie, right?
We should watch it again.
We shouldn't. We really shouldn't. But you should watch Shrek. But so I think we agree that Metro or Illumination wouldn't do a Metroid movie, right?
If they did, it would be a very different tonally style of movie than I think us 3 would probably like.
Agreed.
Yeah, there's a couple points I want to make that. Like, first off, in regards to like Nintendo's partnership, and then like in regards to the movie itself. But like the partnership, I think it goes even deeper, than just, this Mario movie and Nintendo wanting to learn. Because, if you think about it, Illumination is also owned by Universal. And what has Nintendo and Universal been doing? They have been investing a lot of money into those theme parks. Like, a lot of money. And to me, it seems clear that I think Nintendo looks at these avenues, whether it's the theme parks or whether it's the movies. Obviously, this isn't their bread and butter. They want to basically use these movies and these theme parks as commercials to get more people into their actual games and their consoles, which is their real bread and butter. And that to me is what it feels like, is that these are all like more so extended advertisements to get a traditional audiences invested into their products where they really want to start investing and growing a larger user base. And so I don't really think that a Metroid movie fits into that part of the equation when it comes to Illumination, for the reasons that we've already stated. And so, yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to that, but I just wanted to point that out.
No, that's a good point. And I think until they try to make their own version of the Star Wars land that Disney has, and they try to make a direct competitor to that and have Metroid land, they just have like Planet Zebus in an area, which would be sick. Then I'd be like, oh, they might make a Metroid movie. I don't know. But no, that's a good point. And that was something I was thinking about, and you guys kind of answered my question already. But I'm going to go to it because the big animated studio space in Hollywood is dominated by only a few studios. You don't really have a lot of options to go to in terms of studios you could collaborate with to grow an IP through movies or whatever. Like you essentially have Pixar, right? Who I would doesn't make movies that they're not coming up with themselves, right? You have DreamWorks, you have Walt Disney Animation, so like Frozen, Big Hero 6, right? And then you have Illumination. Like that's if you look at the top, I think 50 animated movies of all time. I think it's those four studios only, pretty much.
We also got to point out Sony Animation for the work on Spider-Verse.
And Sony Animation, correct? Yeah, sorry, you're right. And Sony Animation. So like you have
something tells me that's not happening,
which I didn't think about because I very much doubt that Sony Animation is going to make Nintendo movies. So that's a good point. But yes, I wouldn't include them in the running. So you really don't have a lot of options, and you kind of think of those. It's almost as if their only option is to kind of partner with Illumination and then bolster that or use that to bolster Nintendo Pictures, like what you guys outlined. I feel like that's almost their only option, right? Like, or unless you think one of these other studios could maybe, like, do you think there would be a DreamWorks Metroid movie and they're all doing the DreamWorks face?
Well,
Like
I mean, I guess
face?
the little smug, like
the smirk, you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, I guess my question
right
to
there.
you guys is like, what's the difference between a DreamWorks film and an Illumination film? Like, really?
I think there's a big difference.
DreamWorks is Shrek.
Okay.
That's already like a huge.
So I'm saying DreamWorks is Shrek. Yeah, you're talking about the Shrek movie versus the Minions movie. Those are quality-wise way different.
And okay,
way
that's
different.
fair. But I guess what I'm saying is like
Smirk-wise way different.
that you can't argue that either. I guess my point is like I think that those DreamWorks movies are still geared towards a certain type of audience that I don't know if we as Metroid fans would be receptive to that. Like, listen, we can sit and watch the Super Mario movies and have a great time, even though it's for kids, and because there's a lot for us too. I don't think a Metroid movie is going to be for kids, or at least if it was, I don't know what kind of movie that would be. So I think that in terms of that, just like broad, general, like what kind of movie are we making? Who is our target audience? I don't know that there's like a world of difference between Illumination and between DreamWorks. So I almost feel like you're gonna have to get like all the Mario sequels. You're gonna have to get Donkey Kong. You're gonna have to put up with Kirby. Like, and I think that like honestly, like, I mean, you could find someone like you could probably make an Illumination Zelda movie and have it as a little bit more of a serious tone. But like, I think that
I could see that.
I don't know if I
actually
agree with that.
I could actually not see it being serious and it being more like the new A Link to the Past game where it kind of has
maybe.
that like
there's a little bit more
look to
flexibility there, and I'll just wrap up so you can tell me I'm wrong, Doom. But I think that we're gonna have to get those slew of movies that come out until Nintendo is able to at some point like
do their
self-produce their own thing.
I think
like,
you're right.
There is an option too where like maybe we're giving a shot to somebody that doesn't necessarily or that isn't known as on like the same level as an Illumination or DreamWorks. Like maybe it's like they partner with the guys who made Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and it's like okay, like you've done great work on Netflix, and now we want to take you to the big screen, and we're going to give you more of a budget. Or maybe we talked about the company that made Castlevania, who I just looked up and now I forget. But maybe it's like, okay, like we want to make a feature fit. Like there are those kind of opportunities. Wouldn't intend to do that. I'm not like entirely sure, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. But I would say that I think that would almost be more likely than them turning to like a DreamWorks or another like animation company, because as you say, like, and correctly point out, there's not very many. So I think if we're gonna get a Metroid movie, it's either gonna be from Nintendo, they're doing it themselves, or they're gonna partner with someone that we don't see coming. Which maybe that's the case, because nobody saw Retro coming. Very few people saw Mercury Steam coming, right? So who knows?
I actually totally agree with that last point in particular. Like, I don't necessarily agree in that Illumination and DreamWorks are the same.
Yeah.
I feel like DreamWorks and Pixar in particular are really good at creating adult films that are kid friendly to watch. So like PG films that have very complex themes underneath. But I also do agree that I also don't think those studios would be the right fit for a Metroid movie. And I do agree that if Nintendo did a Metroid movie, which I think we all agree is still a ways off, that it would either be something that they would do in-house, or they would do some other studio that's not one of these, big 4 or 5, juggernauts that are creating, your typical Hollywood animated films. I think it would be a smaller studio that would produce something for Netflix or some other streaming service.
Right. I guess
Yeah.
my thing about DreamWorks, and not to beat up this point because it doesn't really matter, but like my thing about DreamWorks is like even their, and I like a lot of DreamWorks movies, don't get me wrong. Like I really loved How to Train Your Dragon, I loved Kung Fu Panda. What else here? I'm just going through the list. God, even like Prince of Egypt is a DreamWorks. So like I think that their movies are,
Well, that's a DreamWorks movie.
I guess,
That movie
yeah.
is so good. I love that movie. Did
So
they make Atlantis too?
I thought
Yeah,
no, that was
'cause that's
Disney.
also-
That was Disney.
Okay,
That was
that's
Disney.
also a goated movie. That one and Treasure Planet. Those are great animated movies. Anyway, continue.
Well, my point about DreamWorks is that, well, I think I could agree with you that the quality is a higher bar. I think that like is the target audience for Kung Fu Panda the target audience for a Metroid movie?
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And not saying, by the way,
Maybe.
that couldn't be like, you couldn't. I'm not saying that you couldn't make like a PG-13 or even like a PG Metroid movie and it wouldn't be great. I kind of wonder, like, if you do that, do the elements that we love about Metroid kind of translate over? Because when I picture a Metroid movie, I don't picture like the wisecracking flying Metroid or whatever, right? Like,
Well, that's kind of another thing I wanted to get at,
Not
because
yet.
like even don't
Not
don't
yet.
tempt it, don't
Not
tempt
yet.
it. But no, that's kind of what I was getting at, because like even if one of those studios did like take a step back from the comedy and make maybe a more grounded and serious animated film, I think we all agree that if Metroid, whether it's on the big screen or whether it's on a streaming service, I would imagine that at the very least it's going to be a PG-13 rated show, or whatever the television rating equivalent to that is. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think any of these studios have done I think as high as they go is PG. I don't think they've ever gone to PG-13, and I don't see Metroid in a PG territory.
I mean, I think Prince of Egypt is probably your closest movie to that. That released almost like 30 years ago. So, yeah, I think you're right. And I wouldn't say it like I said, I think you could do a PG Metroid movie and it could be fine. But I don't know. I guess I would need to see it first or have it pitched to me first or something like that.
I feel like it would be watered down. I feel like to get a true authentic Metroid experience, it has to be at least PG-13. I don't see Nintendo going R-rated. I feel like PG-13
Nor
is
should
the way
they.
to go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the only studio that would stick out to me if I had any other choice here, and if you're a Halo fan, you would know them, Blur Studio. They did the Halo 2 cutscene, Halo 2 anniversary cutscenes. They also worked on Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix, and they did some work on the Sonic movies. Like
Now
the
there's a
parts of
good
that.
pick. Yeah. Love, Death, and
Now,
Robots would be good.
personally, I know a lot of people love in-engine cutscenes. I get that, but the Halo 2 anniversary cutscenes, I think, are some of the most beautiful cutscenes in any game ever created. I would take a whole Halo movie made by them. I would take a whole Metroid movie made by them. I think it would be absolutely incredibly gorgeous. It would be amazing. That would be my pick. If I had to give it to anybody, they would be primed. If they could make a feature film length movie, I would give it to them in a heartbeat.
I'm also
Okay. I'd be down for
an in-engine game cutscene purist, but I also have to admit, like, Halo 2 Anniversary's cutscenes are freaking out of this world. Incredible.
Incredible. Like that's a game where I play on the old graphics and then the cutscenes start, boom, tab.
Yep.
Give me those new cutscenes, cutscene ends, boom, 2004. Give me back. So that'd be my pick.
I don't mind those. Like I remember playing the old Final Fantasies, and they'd have like those very brief, like snippet, really cool cutscenes or whatever. I was all about that. So yeah, I mean, I think I think that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, cutscenes are, I think, pretty divisive. I know there's a lot of people, and I think it comes down to like, I mean, we even have fans of Metroid in the Discord, for example, that like don't care at all about the story and just want to play, right? And there's people like me who very much care about the story. I remember being someone who, when Metal Gear Solid 4 came out, people were really, a lot of people I knew were like, these cutscenes are so long. Because there's cutscenes in that game that are like 20, 30, like
They're long.
they're like
They're
long
long.
movies.
Cutscene is like 40 minutes,
The
right?
last
Yeah.
cutscene I think is like close to an hour, and
The
I
last
remember
cutscene is a bit much, but yes.
I remember enjoying them because I would be like, oh, I get to lay back and like watch this. This is great. Like I get some, I love those long cutscenes. I'm a big cutscene fan, so I think of Blur Studio and I think of some. So that would be my pick.
Yeah, I'd be down with that.
So Blur Studio, if you're listening, make that happen. Make that whole business arrangement and like the movie production. Make all that happen. That'd be really. I will go and pay to see the movie.
Hey.
Now I don't want to do entire movie pitches here. I kind of want to get down to the base core concepts here because the Mario Brothers movie, I think, which was really interesting, that it's not a straight adaptation of any of the games. It's not. I mean, not that there's a Mario canon, but I think we can assume that like this movie takes place outside the world of the games, right?
Yeah.
Like it's its own individual story.
Yeah.
I personally thought that was probably the best thing for them to do. I thought that was really good. Now, having seen the Mario Brothers movie, what do you all think? If they're making a Metroid movie, so it's 2D, 3D, live action, doesn't matter, right? Do you think, or rather, not what you think, what you want? If it's up to you, what would you want? Movie to be an original story, like based on Metroid, so like the Mario Brothers movie. A non-adaptation story, but it fits into the canon. So like, let's say you're making Metroid Prime 4 into a movie, or a straight up adaptation of one of the Metroid games that already exist.
Okay,
I'm going to throw it to Andy, you first. What's your pick?
this is both what I would want to happen and what I'm sure would happen, but I think that it would work in a very, very similar way to comic book movies, where those movies, clearly, they're their own thing. They don't relate to the comics, nor should a Metroid movie relate to the games. It should be its own standalone property that Joe Schmo, who's never heard of Metroid before, can go and see and come away knowing what Metroid is. And I think that as you do a Metroid movie, or maybe two, or maybe three, whatever, you can loosely adapt particular elements from games if you want, right? Like, so what I mean by that is, like, I'll throw The Dark Knight, right? Like, one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. That game very loosely adapts a Batman story called The Long Halloween, which is a great story, and it's about the kind of slow demise of Harvey Dent and how he changes from Harvey Dent into Two-Face. And I think that you'd want to do something similar in a Metroid movie, where it's like, you can start off, you can establish your world, you can have your own unique twists, and maybe the ending of the movie, maybe that kind of draws some elements from Super Metroid or something, or Metroid 2, where like Samus is going to eliminate the Metroids and like saves that baby or whatever. Like, I think you could weave like some specific plot lines in if you want, and if they make sense, but I don't think that you have to be like completely beholden to them. Like another example is I just finished watching Rings of Power, like the Lord of the Rings show on Amazon. And they play a little bit fast and loose with some of like the timeline and some of the characters and stuff like that to make it work for their show. So like they're adapting a story, but they're taking the best parts of the story and tweaking them to work for the silver screen. And I think that's what a Metroid movie would do. And I think that's pretty much what the Mario movie did. Like they took not that Mario's bursting with story, but like they took kind of like some of your key elements from that movie and weaved into a story. And I would think that like almost all Nintendo movies would follow this formula, where it's like, we can be inspired by the series, but we're not going to necessarily, like, we're not going to make Metroid Prime the movie or Metroid Fusion the movie. You actually probably could make Metroid Fusion the movie, and that'd be sweet, but my point is like I think that they could probably take like ideas from a game like Metroid Fusion, like the SAX or the X or something like that, and make it into a general Metroid movie with its own story, its own pacing, its own character, whatever, right? Like, I think that is probably what they would do and what I would want for them to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement there, pretty much. So I'll briefly reference my pitch, not in depth, but just because that actually does go counter to my agreement here. Because the pitch that I did for the previous episode was something that you could put into the current canon, just because it's based off of lore in Metroid, just one that we don't really have a lot of information on, and that's when the pirates actually attack Zebes and annihilate all of the Chozo on there. And I pitched kind of a short film that, depicts those events. But aside from that, we're not talking about a short film. We're talking about an animated series or a feature-length film. And, for that, we're establishing a brand new universe. And for that, I feel like we should really take advantage of that and really give, the creative team, like, all the creative control they have to go in new directions and not be hampered by the current game lore of Metroid. And that's basically the same as you guys just described, what comic book films do, or honestly what anything that's based off of an adaptation, whether it be books or graphic novels, etc., do. A good example, I was just rewatching The Boys again recently, and that's a show that's pretty unanimously everyone agrees the TV show blows the comics out of the water, and that's because they took the best elements of the books, but they went their own directions with it. They created their own social commentary and their own messaging and whatnot. And overall, it's just a lot more, there's a lot more interesting dynamics going on in that show because of the creative control that the showrunners have.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point, and I think the great thing about this, I think you can kind of go in so many different directions. I personally don't think we need to have a story that like would be like required viewing for the canon of the actual current Metroid story. I personally like whatever's relevant for the story should be in the games, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I think with the Mario movie is that they really couldn't like really adapt, like even if it wasn't a one-to-one adaptation, like I mean maybe they could like loosely adapt like Super Mario Sunshine because it's so distinct. And so many Mario stories kind of like blend together. Whereas I feel like Metroid, you could like not even need to one-to-one, but you could adapt the original Metroid story, right? Like I always feel like I talked about this in the Discord, like I feel like an almost one-to-one adaptation of like what happens in like Samus's early life in the manga and whatever, and then lead into the events of Metroid as one movie, I think would work really well. I could see them doing a loose adaptation of Metroid Prime and taking the general story of Metroid Prime, but like fleshing it out because adding characters and whatnot. That I could see them doing. And then yeah, I could see what you two are describing, where they kind of create their own story that's faithful to the games, but allows them to be more creative, and they're not retelling the original events of Metroid or whatever it is. I would be down for any of those, as long as it's not like the Halo TV show where they come up with a new story and it contradicts and doesn't make any sense, not only in the context of the story, but you're just coming up with completely new characters essentially. Even the ones that I don't want that. That's the thing that I'm worried about, is I don't want one of those. Like I want The Last of Us, which is like a loose adaptation that's faithful and adapts the main story to an extent. Pretty much follows that, but it's not one-to-one. I don't want the Halo TV series. That's the only thing that kind of worries me about like giving them creative freedom, whoever them would be, to an extent.
Yeah, like I feel like I would actually be fine if they even explored a little bit more outside the bounds, like than what The Last of Us did. And I love The Last of Us, by the way; it was awesome.
I still need to watch it.
I thought it was pretty good.
Very good.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I was a little bit biased because I saw like little bits of Calgary in there, and I was like, oh, hey, cool.
Hey, there you go.
But like, yeah, like I think that they could have a little bit more free. Like I pitched Doom a story, and I think I had like an original character that was kind of like a stand-in for Adam, but like just so that Samus had someone to talk to, which I think that you'd probably need to do if it was a Metroid movie, show, whatever. Like I think that you'd probably need to have Samus like talking to someone at some point, right? Like,
but couldn't you just take Adam and not have him be dead?
You could, yeah, you
earlier, could. And this, like that. That's I feel like maybe would make that route could maybe like make more sense. Like you still have Adam, but he's alive.
Sure, like yeah, I think that option's on the table. I mean, I just picked a new character because I'm not a fan of Adam, and I wanted to get Sigourney Weaver in my movie, but I think that you could do that, but you could take like a little bit of a different license and say like Adam is my CO and maybe he's in my ear and gets me support or something or whatever.
Admiral
right?
Dane
like,
or whatever shows
yeah,
up and
yeah. So like,
All right, listen. Or sorry, you go.
no. I'm done. I'm done.
you said, hey, listen, I want to know.
Yeah.
All right, look, I know we said no pitches, but I hope you're ready for a pitch. Listen, it's simple. It's John Wick, but it's in the Metroid universe. Instead of the dog getting killed, it's the baby Metroid. Instead of the Continental, it's the Galactic
It's
Federation.
the animals. The animals get killed.
Yes, and instead of Winston, it's Adam.
No,
Boom.
it's
there you
it's
go.
her
There's your
parents
movie.
that get killed.
There's your movie.
The parents are
Either
killed,
or.
and Ridley is Yusuf.
You could do either or. You
Yeah.
can do either or. It works either way.
I actually, that was another question I was going to ask. Let's jump to that.
Okay.
Because it's a two-parter, and we're going to get to doing what you were referring to. First, would you all be down for a live-action Metroid movie? And second, who would you want to direct it? I think there's an answer. Who would you want to? I don't know the name of the John Wick directors, but I know they're incredible stunt, people, and that's why they started making those movies. So let's say, would you want a live-action movie? Let's start with that. Like, is that like we talked about animated? Would you be down for? I mean, and don't be like, well, that it would be an Alien or Aliens movie. Like, let's assume that we're making it different enough where it's not an Alien or Aliens copy pasta by making it a live action movie. I'm gonna go to you first because you brought up John Wick, which is obviously live action. Would you want to see a live action Metroid movie?
I would. I would be. I think
Over animated. If you had to choose one or the other.
If I had to choose one or the other, well, so that gets into it. I feel like a live action.
Both.
Yes, so I feel like a live action movie would be a lot more difficult than an animated feature or a TV series. I feel like that would be a lot more challenging to do, but I also think it has a lot more potential as well at the same time. And so I would be very cautiously optimistic. And of the two, I would probably, depending on how well the trailer looked, I could potentially be more hyped for a live action film. But I mean, again, it depends. But again,
I'm with you, man.
I just think there's a lot. I think there's a lot more potential with a live action film if you put the love and care into it and it has a good enough budget. Or honestly, even if it doesn't, I mean, District 9 had like a pathetically small budget, and that's like one of the best looking sci-fi films of all time.
Yes.
And transitioning into your director question there, Neil Blomkamp. That's my choice.
Neil Blomkamp. Okay, yes. Okay.
Who is by the way currently directing a Gran Turismo film of all things right now.
I want to see that. I'm very curious because I feel like
it looks pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
I like racing movies in general.
Fellas, I watched Need for Speed not that long ago. I'm not excited for Gran Turismo.
That's a good point because he was almost going to work on the Halo movie too at one point. So, but Andy,
you can even find some of the props from the Halo movie used in District 9. I think there's
the battle rifles.
I was about to say there's like repainted battle rifles in that movie.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think that people may dump on me for saying this, but I feel like a live action movie inherently feels a little bit bigger in some aspects. Not necessarily better, but bigger. Which is why I think Disney keeps on like churning out these live action versions of their
live action. Like The Lion King, which was not live action. It was realistic, but
which are horrible,
action.
By the way. So I'm not trying to say that it's always better. Like clearly it's not. But I do think that like it feels bigger to me to have a live action, and I think that there's lots of like really great budget like things that you can do. Like you brought up District 9. I'm gonna bring up The Expanse. Like that's a fantastic TV show made on a budget, right? Like, and I think that that's a really good example of like what you can do with like smart sci-fi pacing and smart sci-fi budget. And I think that would look very, very cool. So if I had a choice, it would be live action. And I think, oh my God, why can I not? Boys, help me. Who directed Blade Runner? Why can I not think of the new Blade Runner? What the heck is this guy's name?
Is he the same guy that directed Dune, or is that a different guy?
Denis Villeneuve?
Villeneuve,
Denis
Villeneuve.
Yeah.
I can't believe I can't remember. Anyways, he would be my guy because I think like every movie that I've seen of his is like so visually stunning. And I think that you need that if you're going to direct a live action Metroid movie. I think you really need to have the world look incredible. I think like
that's a great pick.
If you don't have that, your movie's gonna, I don't know, it's gonna feel a little bit lesser than to me. Because I think like animation is maybe, I don't know, who knows? I could be speaking completely out of turn, but like
boomer opinion incoming.
Yeah, I think it's easier to make it look really cool, right? Because like you could draw whatever you want,
okay.
and like you could have like these sick cyberpunk aesthetics in your animation, but like it's hard to get that look practically, and I think that if you were to do it correctly and if you were to do it right, I think it would be so huge, right? Like I'll use Lord. This is a bad example because it's one of the most high budgeted, successful movies ever. But Lord of the Rings, that could have been really easy to do as an animated movie, but they put in the work, they put in the budget, they made the sets. It looks awesome, and people revere those movies to this day, including me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would absolutely love to see live action. Do I think it'll happen? Yeah, probably not. But like, that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I feel like a live action movie has the potential to be worse with the potential to be better overall. Like
Yes,
higher
100%.
peaks, lower
That's right.
lows.
Yep.
Yeah.
And personally, I agree with you, Doom. I would be way more excited for a live action just because, like, I don't know, there's something about that I somewhat agree with you, Andy. I think these days that's changed. Animated movies, especially like the new like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, like the Super Mario, but like these have become as big as live action movies, which in and of themselves have a lot of CG. I mean, Avatar just came out, and that's a live action movie, but it's also very animated. So that line is kind of blurred. Even obviously Dune, same thing. It's live action with mixed with a lot of good CG, and I feel like that's what Metroid would be so good in, where you have those a mixture of practical effects and computer generated effects. With like, I think just for me, when I want to watch a movie, when I want to watch a Super Mario Brothers movie, I want to watch Mario jump on some Koopas and I hear Mario music. I'm like, oh, that's fun. I'm in and out. Honestly, I want to see some cool like Samus shooting aliens action, but I want to connect to like the human aspect and that part of Metroid, which is also a reason why I like the games as well. I like Samus as a character, and I feel like I would love to see Samus and other characters portrayed by actual humans and see those real emotions, and which I feel like something like Metroid, you know, that works better in Metroid than it does in Mario. I feel like Metroid is an IP that works better in live action than something like Mario, for example. I don't think it works as good in live action as it makes sense in live action. Not going to take the bait. All right, fine, I'll continue. But
I think part of the draw. No, I'm not touching that. I think part of the. I have some thoughts, but I'll save those for our bonus episode. Part of the draw of like a live action Metroid movie would be seeing those gross, disgusting creatures, right? That Samus is going head to head. I actually thought that you guys might like kind of laugh at me when I said that a Metroid movie should be like John Wick-esque, but like I think that'd be awesome. Like sick. See like Samus is barreling through a bunch of enemies and stuff.
Whatnot,
like like I think that's like a really decent blueprint actually for a Metroid movie.
I think there's a lot of ways you can go on my short list, right? And I tried not to mention Ridley Scott or James Cameron, obviously, because they directed Alien and Aliens. But also, I mean, James Cameron for Avatar from that. We mentioned Denis Villeneuve, Dune. I can't say his last name. Denis. I know him on a first name basis.
Cool.
Not only did he do Dune, but he also did Arrival and Blade Runner. But he did Arrival as well, which was really good. I wasn't the hugest fan of that movie, but it was a good sci-fi movie.
It looked awesome, if nothing else.
It looked very good. I think Christopher Nolan would be sick for a Metroid movie. I know he's polarizing, but he just he creates that epic feel to a movie like Interstellar, Inception. Like these are big major movies. Interstellar is one of my favorite movies of all time, and if I can get like an Interstellar quality Metroid movie, I would be super happy with that. Obviously Miyazaki if he went the Studio Ghibli route, obviously. And then Guillermo del Toro, Pacific Rim.
Ooh,
right?
That's
like,
a good pick.
That's my sleeper pick right there. And then obviously Neil Blomkamp. Those would be my picks there. I think Del Toro would be sick for a Metroid
I didn't even
movie.
think of Del Toro. But that's such an obvious pick. Like when you say it out loud, it's like, oh yeah.
Pacific Rim, like you have big bad monsters, you have people like getting into suits of some size. And I don't know. I think that like the characters are kind of written in a way like if you tweaked a little bit would make sense for Metroid. Just how it's shot, I think, like especially underwater. Like I could see like Samus underwater in the same kind of way, like how a lot of those scenes were in Pacific Rim. And that's also one of my favorite movies. So I would say.
Well, you know, we've been talking about like the visual effects and like the gross alien creatures and how like, cool that would be to see in live action. But for me, like when I think of live action, when I think of breathtaking Metroid moments, I think of like the simpler moments, like One of my all-time favorite Metroid moments, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, is just the Talon overworld landing sequence. Like the moment
Mhm.
where I became a Metroid fan, and I feel like having that in live action would be significantly more impactful than having that in animated form, or even seeing just
I
really
agree.
cool technological colossi like the Sanctuary
Mm.
Fortress
Mhm.
or the Skytown Elysia, or just stuff that like obviously would look incredibly cool animated, but seeing that interpreted in live in a live
Yeah.
esque visual setting, like I
Listen,
feel like that would just be incredible.
there's a reason that Avatar and Avatar 2 are like two of the highest grossing movies of all time, and it's because the worlds look
Immaculate.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing.
that's what I want from Metroid.
And like it hurts because like I know it would never happen, but like
Yeah,
man, God, that would be so awesome.
I'd be so happy with that.
Hmm.
Something that and yeah, I think Doom. That's a really good point. Like some of the more basic, intimate moments of Metroid, like Samus, like the baby Metroid imprinting on her. Like sure, the baby Metroid would be cool, but I want to see like whoever the actor is, like
Yeah.
be Samus in that, like and give me that scene
It
in a
reminds me like
big
of
movie.
in
That'd be so
Avatar. You remember the
cool.
first Avatar when like those little white like little jellyfish thingies float
Yeah,
around
like the
Jake
tree
Sully?
Hmm.
spirits or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like that was so awesome, and it was just a quiet little moment, and it was awesome. Like I think you could do a lot of those kind of moments in a Metroid movie. That would be,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
that's the strength of live action. Where yes, I there's a lot more opportunity to fail, like for sure.
Yes.
But if you
But
succeed, now we're talking. Like now you are, now you're like revered, and you have a lot more potential.
Yeah, the
agree.
plus side you get all these small moments, but on the downside, you get I wanna take me down on the old town road. I'm gonna
What
will
movie you
you? That's
watching?
yeah. What is that going to go into the movie?
Yeah, what?
probably.
I would
You
be.
think they
I'd
would
be alright
still
with
use
that.
you to begin with Old Town Road? I think as Samus
That would be an
walks.
animated movie, if anything.
Yeah, do you think they would use licensed music for a live action movie for Metroid? That I don't know. I
I
think
was mostly just memeing, but like I don't
well,
know.
let's dig into it. What do you I think they need to use I Need a Hero, whatever it is. What is that song?
Oh, that's I Need a Hero, Bonnie Taylor.
Or Metallica, Ride the Lightning or something would be sick. I don't know. That'd be
Uh,
cool. Like
I'm not
you know
buying
the
it.
Metallica's in Fortnite. You
That doesn't
sometimes get
surprise
into
me.
it.
I feel like
I have
I feel like
the- I
everybody
have the
but
Master
Samus is
Puppets
in
emote.
Fortnite at this point.
I have the Master Puppets emote as well, and when you get into the car, it can be on the radio. I'm like, wow, this is immersive, just like real life.
Mhm.
This is crazy.
Hmm.
All right, so we've been talking about this for a while, and I can't wait to open up my doors and windows because it is crazy hot in my room. But one more Brucey bonus episode question here before we jump off this. Let's say you are you are the movie namer. That's your job title. Okay. Mr. Nintendo comes to you and they're like, hey, we have a Metroid movie. This needs to sell a bajillion Metroid dollars. But you can't call it just Metroid. You have to call it Metroid can be in the title, but you can't call it just Metroid. This movie needs to make a billion majillion Metroid dollars, and the title is going to be a big part of marketing this movie. Andy, what do you call the Metroid movie?
Ooh. Okay. So it kind of depends on like what your movie's about, like a little bit, right? So let's assume that this Metroid movie is probably an origin story. Listen, this isn't the best, okay? But you know how the first Captain America was like the first Avenger? I think you go something along that road, like Metroid,
Metroid, the first Metroid.
Birth of a Hunter, or
Oh, okay.
Metroid, I don't know, something like that, where it's like
Samus, the first Metroid.
it like Metroid Begins, obviously not Metroid Begins,
Metroid Begins, yes.
but you know what I mean,
that.
like Metroid something, Metroid the First Hunt, or Metroid I don't know, something to get across.
First Hunt's a good one. I like that. First
Yeah,
Hunt, I
like-
think would be good. Metroid First Hunt.
Like I think that would be fine, and then maybe you can get into like as you get sequels, you could get your Metroid Fusion or your Metroid Prime or whatever. I think it's probably something along those lines though, like something that conveys that like yes, this is the first Metroid movie, because I mean assuming again, like if a Metroid movie ever got made, whether it was live action, whether it was animated, as Doom points out correctly, these movies are really kind of like a tool to get people to play Nintendo games. So like, I think you make it in a way where it's like very accessible for people that have never played Metroid. So it's kind of like you're telling people who Samus is. So I think it's probably going to be an origin story. So I think it's probably going to be something along those lines, like Metroid, this is who Samus is and what she's all about and whatever.
Great title.
Metroid John Wick in space. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Metroid Chapter 1.
Dude, what would you go with? What's your title?
So here's my question first. Why does it have to be subtitled? Why can't we just call it Metroid? Because I feel like most video game projects...
It doesn't have to be.
Those are the rules, though.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, those are not the rules. The rules were.
These are your self-imposed rules in this question.
No. My rule was it can't be just Metroid. It doesn't have to be Metroid subtitle. It could be something Metroid. It could be Metroid something without
a... Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean specifically subtitle, just that it can't be just called Metroid.
It can't be just Metroid. And why? Right. Because then otherwise you're going to say, well, just call it Metroid, and that's not fun. So you have to say something else.
Okay, that's fair. I don't know, maybe something that like references Samus as a character, because, you know, obviously the title Metroid refers to, in a way it refers to Samus because Metroid translates to the Ultimate Warrior, which is also what Samus is, but it doesn't directly, you know what I mean? It doesn't directly reference the main character. It's not like, you know, Metroid, say an Iron Man or a
Warrior.
Yeah, it's not like a Spider. You know what? That's not bad. A bit redundant, but not bad.
Into the Metroid verse.
Into the Metroid verse, yeah, that'd be good.
It's actually too bad that you couldn't use Samus Returns as a title, because that would be awesome.
You could for the sequel.
You could for the sequel. Samus Arrives doesn't kind of
Samus Arrives
roll off the same way.
That's kind of interesting though. Samus Arrives. I feel like that would be like a joke movie, like a parody movie.
I think like Samus Returns would be a really strong title if it fit, but it doesn't.
They could somehow make it fit. I think, like, I don't know, somehow, because then I'd be like, returning from what? I haven't seen another Metroid movie. I gotta tune in, I guess. Like that would be. That's what I'm thinking.
How about
Metroid?
Maybe
Prime Pinball, the movie.
Metroid. Well, it could be Metroid the movie.
This is the scenario. Okay, the NCU is like 12 movies deep, and we finally got our team up movie, and like Super Smash Bros is happening. There's post credit scenes with Thanos or whatever, and Samus is in this movie. Maybe her first
Master Hand.
No, Thanos is coming. He's teaming up with Master Hand.
Thanos is in the movie. Yeah,
so maybe Samus is in there, and then her first movie is Samus Returns, and then because you've seen her already, so technically she's returning, but it's not just called Metroid. I don't know.
Okay.
Master Hand and Thanos. Bad combo.
Because then you put the gauntlet
Master
on
Hand
Master
with
Hand.
the gauntlet. There you go.
That would
now
be
we're cooking.
Oh, that we need to write that movie. Screw the Metroid movie. Let's get to that. Let's just jump ahead. Real quick, I'm gonna answer for myself. I think The Last Metroid would be a cool movie title. It would be ironic because it would be untrue. Samus eventually would become the last Metroid in the future past that, but I don't know. I feel like The Last Metroid would be a cool movie or a cool movie title. It's also like a phrase in the games, like it has a meaning there. And even if it doesn't work, I think it would be cool. I honestly also think you could just use Metroid Prime. Just call it Metroid Prime. That brand is so strong. Even if it's not related to Metroid Prime, just call it that. It's such a good title. It's just something about it. It's strong. It's a strong brand. It's a strong brand. So those would be my.
And you
picks.
could easily take Prime elements and put that into an origin story too. I feel like.
I agree, and I also feel like if they were going for like a 2.5 hour, 3.5 hour epic, I think you could adapt the events of all 3 Metroid Prime games into a single Metroid Prime movie.
I agree with that as well. Actually.
I don't know about that.
Absolutely.
I think you could, but I think that you might leave out like certain elements. Like you're not going to Planet Aether and dealing with the Ing, but you are seeing Dark Samus pop up and threaten you. Maybe you don't have all like the other bounty hunters, but you do get the Phazon corruption. I think you could do it. I think you could merge like the origin stories of Nestroid and Metroid Prime too into one kind of thing almost. And like you could maybe take elements of, let's just throw this out there hypothetically, maybe instead of Zebes, the space pirates have landed and built their base on Talon 4, and Mother Brain is there, and Kraid is there, and Ridley's there because of this phase-on and because of this impact crater. So, like, I think that's kind of what I mean when I think that you want to tell some, like, so you want to pull from elements from the story, but go your own way and have some creative license. Like, I think that you probably could merge those if you wanted to, and if you kind of trimmed a lot of the fat and made, like, something that weaves those together a little bit more seamlessly. I think you could do it.
Well, what I'm saying is I think you could merge them in some areas, but then I feel like other aspects that you don't include could be, like, still put in a sequel. Like, for example, like the Light and Dark World. That would obviously not be in the first movie at all, but maybe that could, like, come into play, like, 2-3 movies down the line.
Yeah, like, I don't like when I think of that, I'm like, okay, if they're gonna adapt all three, like, into a movie, like, you introduce the corruption hunters earlier, right? Like, maybe they would be characters earlier, like in the events of Metroid Prime, something like that.
Yeah,
like maybe Samus doesn't go to Aether, but Rundus does, and it's like a split plot. So, like, Rundus is tailing with stuff on Aether while Samus eventually starts doing, like, I think it would be possible. I think it would be an interesting challenge to see how they would do it. You mentioned the Metroid and Metroid Prime adaptations, though, real quick. I actually think it would make more sense if they adapted the events of Metroid and Metroid 2 together, and you have the end of Metroid as your midpoint and, like, lowest point almost, and then Samus has to go back to finish the job and at the end of the second act into the third act. That's how I think would be actually really cool. But anyway,
I think you could do, like, Metroid 1, 2, and 3 together as well.
Well, I think the sequel, because then in the sequel, Mother at, like, the post credit scene is Mother Brain being alive still or whatever it is, and then Super Metroid would be the sequel. And that would be just Super Metroid adaptation. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's definitely, like, a lot of different options that you could do. So yeah, I mean, I hope it comes true. I think that, like, the success of the Mario movie certainly shows us that there's an appetite for these Nintendo IPs, and I think it's not just because the Mario Bros. Movie is a great kids movie. Like, I think it's, there was a lot of people like us in the theater that I went to. There was a lot of kids, but there was a lot of people like us too, like our age, kind of watching and laughing and maybe rolling their eyes at some of the music bits, but, like, just generally having a good time. So I think that market is, like, there and it's strong.
Yeah, me and the boys got dressed up for that event.
Oh my god,
I saw
that was awesome.
I saw that. Yeah, me and my friend went, and it was a good time. And we're both in our late 20s, so we had a good time. Yeah, it was good.
Me and my wife went to the 10 p.m. show, and there were still a ton of kids there for some reason.
I went to the 8:30 show on a Friday. It was packed.
I bet.
But almost no screaming, crying little babies, which was great. Only one little baby cry at one point, and that was it.
Yeah, we had kids in our theater, but, like, they were all chill. Like, nobody was, like, screaming at the top of their lungs.
Because they were focused. They were watching that. They were watching that movie. They were not distracted. They were focused on that Mario.
As they should have been. There's a lot to follow for that movie. And if you want to hear us talk about that movie, by the way, by God, Patreon over at OmegaMetroid.com is where you can hear our thoughts on the Super Mario Bros. Movie. And I'm going to plug Virtual Theater one last time. Check out Goo and I's thoughts about the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Goose, oh boy. Okay, well, yeah, that was awesome. Thanks, Zach, for putting that together. That was great, and I think that we had a very different but a very interesting discussion about what a Metroid movie could be, maybe what we'd want it to be, potential possibilities. I love that stuff.
I agree, and I'm glad we were able to jump back into this because I was kind of itching to talk about it. I know you guys talked about it, but it's been a while since I've talked about it on the show, so it was a selfish play by me. I'm not gonna lie, and you can flame me in the reviews if you want. But that said, I do have a pitch for you. What I want to pitch the title of this episode, the podcast episode. We should call it the last Metroid movie episode. Parentheses until the next one. That's what I think we should.
I'm fine with it.
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
I thought you were gonna say this. I thought you were gonna say the Super Metroid movie, but
that's a great title.
We could do that too.
Whoever's editing Super Metroid movie wouldn't be the worst title, to be honest. If we had to pick a title that wasn't just Metroid.
So yeah, Super Metroid would be sick.
Yeah,
a Super Metroid movie, the Super Metroid Brothers movie.
Hey, now we're
new
talking.
Nintendo Metroid movie U
Deluxe
featuring
Plus.
Knuckles.
with crank, not cranky mode.
New funky mode.
Funky mode. I can't wait to talk about not ready. Funky, but you know what I mean. Okay.
Is it?
Let's talk about that over on the other side.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
I'm
let's
ready.
do that. Okay, well, we're going to get out of here. Thank you, everyone, for checking this out, and let us know what your thoughts on a Metroid movie would be. I'm so fascinated by this topic. I'd love your feedback. Let us know over in our Discord. Let us know over on Twitter. We are at Omega Metroid Pod, and you can check us out on Twitter as well. I'm at Spiteri316. Dak is at DakCity_, and Doom is at Doominal Cross, and we are, of course, at Omega Metroid Pod and OmegaMetroid.com, where you can go and check out all the latest Metroid news, articles, walkthroughs, guides, maps, you name it, it's there. Our Patreon, once again, is over there as well. Our theme song is there once again. You can download that for free. It's free. You should do it because it rocks. And check us out wherever you get your podcast. Like and subscribe. That is it. That is all. We are going to get out of here, and we will see everybody next week. Until then, take care.